He's back. Martin Sorrell, 6 weeks after departing WPP, has announced he's getting back in the advertising business. Who'd have thought?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the astonishing thing. It's the speed by which he's gone to market again.
Yeah.
6 weeks after, you know, the infamy of kind of leaving WPP.
Yeah.
Astonishing.
So just before we get into the details, there's been lots of talk about this. I mean, it's, you know, every single week there's something like spectacular which is happening in this industry, which is fascinating. There's been lots of these analogies to Star Wars. I think we've used that already. Like the Emperor Strikes Back. You know, is this a kind of revenge move? Yeah. It reminds me a little bit of this kind of Terminator. Now, like will not go away. Comes back potentially even stronger. So anyway, but joking aside, so what is he doing?
Well, he's used his old WPP playbook, it seems. Yeah. And he has bought a cash shell, so a business that you can then use to acquire other businesses in the same way that he originally did with WPP. Yeah. And he's going to call this new business S4 Capital. Yeah. He is going to contribute £40 million of his own money. Mm-hmm. He's looking to generate a fund initially of £150 million with which he will go on some form of an acquisition spree. And he's going to create another holding group, potentially that will go toe-to-toe with his old one. Yeah, exactly. Which is interesting because he still retains a 1.4% stake in WPP, worth about 250 million. So the irony is he could always cash that in and buy more agencies to compete with WPP at some point in the future. Yeah. He said publicly, I think last week, that the focus was going to be on technology, data and content. That's right. And interestingly said that it's going to be a kind of a communication services company, but focused on growth. That's right. It's interesting. I mean, a very brief statement, but the fact that it was focused on growth, I wonder whether that was any kind of comment on what other holding companies would maybe focusing on something else. I don't know. It looks like the same playbook. Why? When we were talking about him leaving WPP a few weeks ago, we questioned what was his motivation? Where was he trying to get the business to? That at the age of 73, it was still an obsession. Yeah. And now he's back trying to do it again. So what is driving this incredible? Who knows? I mean, you know, he's in his 70s, and yet he's still got the appetite and the hunger to create a startup, which is essentially what it is. Yeah. A well-funded one, but that's what it is. I don't know. I mean, you know, he's obviously fit. He's healthy. He's up for the fight, the battle. He finds this industry fascinating. Yeah. Perhaps there's a requirement to establish some form of legacy. You know, he's calling it S4 because he's 4 generations of Sorrell. Perhaps this is his. Obviously, WPP is no longer a legacy business for him. Maybe this is his way of leaving a legacy. Yeah. Okay. I think that might make sense. You know, we talked last week about Accenture Interactive kind of looming in the rearview mirror of agencies. You know, this is another terrifying, look in the side mirror, they've got Sorrell's face bearing down on you as well. You know, playing kind of catch up is another challenge and distraction to the agencies that they're going to have to kind of keep an eye on. The thing I think that Sorrell's great kind of strength, and it's been fascinating to watch how quickly he can mobilize something so significant. It seems kind of very rare, if not unique, in the ability to do this, because he has access. He has access in 3 key areas. He has access to advertisers, and as has been well commented many times by us and others, he has access at the very highest levels of many advertisers. Yeah. You know, he would walk the halls at Davos, and he has amazing kind of access and connections, not just with marketers, but with C-suite. So that's the first thing. It's important. If you're going to set up an agency, to know a few big advertisers is probably quite helpful. The next thing he has access to, as he's just demonstrated this week, is access to money. Yeah. Money just gets drawn to him like a magnet because he's incredibly successful at making money. That's right. So he's been doing a roadshow through institutional investment companies the last few weeks, apparently. And he's laid 40 million quid on the table. He's already got millions and millions piled out on top of that, and an ambition to grow that to a 150 million pound pot, which presumably he can do with very little effort, really, because lots of people will be willing to invest in him. And the third and the critical thing, I think, to the success is his access to talent. Yeah. So having departed WPP,
you'd assume, I think we talked about this when we talked about WPP, there will still be a lot of senior, influential, great talent in WPP who are in their hearts loyal to Martin. And should his business grow to a scale, which you'd assume it would do with that kind of funding, that he may be an attractive proposition to attract away some key talent.
That's right.
Either from existing WPP agencies or other groups. Because he's like the Pied Piper, and some people will want to follow him into the future.
And you know what, I mean, you mentioned it, whatever you think of Martin Sorrell and WPP now, the one thing that is universally recognised about Sir Martin Sorrell is his ability and his brilliance at making money. So nobody's going to bet against S4 Capital, certainly in the short term. But I think what will be really interesting will be what type of businesses they look to acquire. So, it's about tech, it's about data, and it's about content. But I think the first 1 or 2 acquisitions and the type of businesses that they decide to bring into that holding group, which is what it is, will send out a massive message to the marketplace in terms of their intention.
You're going to know that first card that he lays down is going to be really hugely indicative. Right, so 2 years ago, we launched a series of investigative reporting into 7 areas of the industry. And we started, this was 2 years ago, we started with looking at media transparency. We've completed now all 7. We've looked at one every 3 months. We're now 2 years later going to do a refresh. So we've published now a new survey on media transparency. We're going to ask the same questions, and we're going to look to see how the industry has evolved in those last 2 years. Really important. So really encourage anybody involved in the industry. It's not just for marketers or agencies. Anybody who's involved in the industry, please click down below. It takes 5 minutes. Complete the transparency survey, and then you'll get access to the report in a few weeks.
So our findings from 2 years ago were published within the A&A transparency report. I think with the only independent source that was kind of used within that transparency report that they
published. Page 13, I think it was, of the report. So you can see, so it was hugely helpful back then. We want to do a refresh. Please click below, and you can download actually the report from 2 years ago if you need. Right, question of the week. Will Sorrell's S4 Capital be a success?
Yes, no, whatever.
Excellent. That's your media snack for this week. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.
See you next time.